I just realized I accidentally had my Twitch on in the background when I didn't fucking mean. So, whoops. Good thing that is not showing up in the, VOD. Alright, let me get swapped over here. So yeah, kind of just long story short is I want to start making, content about the card game I play. And considering there's no online client to, like, just play games, pretty much the only real way to get introductory content in for this game is pretty much talking about card evaluations and all that jazz. And considering people who know me, I know I'm pretty into fighting games and all that kind of shit. The fact that we're getting Street Fighter is kind of a big deal. Um, so just a quick overview for those who probably are not familiar with UVS, or Universus as it's called. It is a leader-based game. The character represents what your deck is built out of and all that. The three symbols in the bottom left here. You have to choose one of these three symbols, and as long as the card has that symbol, you can put it in your deck. This is your... Actually, I can't... Hold on, let me actually make it so that my mouse is visible here, because that's actually sort of relevant. Is it still not showing my mouse? Oh, whatever. The heart is your total amount of health. Oh, there we go. That's your total amount of health. Each character has a different amount. This is your hand size. Anytime at the start of your turn, you draw up to your hand size. So you're flinging a lot of cards around and all that kind of thing. There's also stuff about, like, checks and passing cards and all that. Is 6 a big hand? 6 is standard, I would say. There are 7-handers and 5-handers. Usually 7-handers have less health. We'll see that with one of the characters in these decks. And 5-handers typically have a lot more health. just, you know, balancing reasons for obviously having a much larger or smaller hand size. Um, but yeah, so with the Street Fighter 6 decks, there are two of them. There's Ryu and Chun-Li. Uh, Ryu comes with an additional character, that being Luke, and Chun-Li also comes with an additional character, that being Jamie. Uh, so with that in mind, let's talk about the characters that will be releasing in the Street Fighter 6 Challenger decks. So how the game works is it's also a creatureless game, which means that you play rather than playing monsters, units, whatever you want to call them, to attack your opponent directly. You yourself are playing attack cards with the sort of idea that it's your character doing these attacks. Um, After an attack is played, it goes to the response step, which any card that says response on it, usually response would say like if an attack is played or if a card is played, that sort of thing. Then it goes to the enhance step, where players will take turns playing their enhances, whether that be on their character, their foundations, or their attacks. Enhances on attacks have been kind of getting phased out recently, with Blitz instead, which we'll get into that when we get into that. But every character has several abilities on their face that kind of dictates how you build the character and what cards go into the deck. So with that in mind, Ryu says Enhanced Tenacious. Your non-tech, non-weapon attack gets +2 damage. Tenacious means even if he's committed or tapped, you can still play this ability. Which ties into his responsibility. After attack is completely blocked, which blocking is a whole can of worms that we might get into later. Obviously, I don't want to get bogged down in totally how to play, but after an attack is completely blocked, draw 3 cards, add 1 card from your hand to the top of your deck. All these Street Fighter characters have this ability of after attack is completely blocked, which is supposed to kind of tie into the perfect parries in the Street Fighter 6 system, which I think is neat. Not all of them are made the same, for sure, but so right off the bat, Ryu just adds a base 2 damage to every move, provided it's a non-tech or non-weapon attack. And those are just keywords, similar to like tribes and magic and all that jazz. Excuse me. So yeah, just +2 damage on face is good. There are some characters that do that similarly, like Big Metal Titan from Attack on Titan 1. Your attack gets +2 damage if you're not adding any cards in momentum. Yeah. Big Metal Titan never really saw any play. So a lot of Ryu's strength is going to come down to his responsibility, which, to be fair, is pretty good. He just randomly becomes an 8-hander when an attack is completely blocked, and he guarantees a check. He guarantees your next check because he can put a card with a check of 5 or 6 on top of the deck, or if you have some way to draw, you can put an attack and just redraw it. That's also possible. All Fire and Void, which slightly aggro-ish symbols. Void is typically a more control symbol, while fire is definitely more aggro. All is... I don't know what the fuck all is doing anymore, honestly. I'll be totally real with you. We've only seen a handful of all symbol cards recently. I think it was the solo leveling structure decks that had any real all support. But yeah, Ryu's like, yeah, the far left symbol is called all, the gear like symbol. It's meant to be the counterpart to Void. This game has a lot of symbols, and that is from a much older time. We have seen them sort of downscaling the symbol identity a little bit because not every set has every symbol now. But regardless, Ryu is good. I don't know that he'll be running like the metagame. +2 damage is like good. There's a lot of characters that just add so much more, but being able to do that on every attack with no cost, like, yeah, alright, sure. Him being limited to non-tech and non-weapon is very funny, because, yeah, it's Ryu. It's a Ryu from Streets. And obviously his responsibility is very strong, just being able to, again, randomly become an 8-hander, guarantee a check. Decent stuff. Again, I don't know that he'll have a ton of success, but he'll be fine. At the very least, like, you'll probably be able to do really good with him at your locals. Luke. I want Luke to be so much better than he actually is. Because I adore Alex Lee's very much enthusiasm for this character. It's so funny. And he's so funny in game because he shouts beast mode, baby, and that's his thing. He goes beast mode. But this attack gets +1 or -1 speed. Then if this attack speed is 5, it gets +2 or -2 damage. So when I initially read Luke, I greatly misunderstood, or greatly misread what it does. I thought, because I have a habit of inserting words when there aren't any, or loot dropping words when I shouldn't be, I thought it said, then if this attack speed is 5 or greater, it gets +2 or -2 damage. Which would have been a lot better. And then response after an attack is completely blocked, look at the top card of your deck and you may discard it. I don't know why this is a once per turn. Like, I guess I kind of get it. Obviously, being able to see top card of the top card of your deck, I mean, that's cheating. If you did that without using ability, you get thrown out of the tournament. But it being so specific, like, it has to be completely blocked, and it's only once per turn. It's so weirdly limiting that it's effectively a non-factor with Luke. And this also ties into what I was saying about how not all of these completely blocked abilities are made the same. Because Ryu's is much better. So he's mostly going to be played for his top enhance, which, like, +1, +2 is good. Like, that ER is good stats. It makes your speed, makes your attack harder to block, and obviously damage is damage. You need to inflict damage to kill your opponent. It being so locked to specifically 5 speed, which, like, for your attacks, that's one thing, because, like, you know, you put the cards in, you put the cards that are in your deck. But that also means they all have to be printed for speed for you to get the ability off. And the attack cannot have a response or blitz ability that increases its speed before the enhanced step, because then you just don't get the effect. Yeah, and obviously doing it on your opponent, the -1 speed, then if this attack speed is 5, yeah. Obviously, -1 speed isn't nothing. Like, that's on every attack. You can do it for free. Unless you commit Luke, but you would never commit Luke, because he doesn't have a commit cost. It's just very hard to manipulate your opponent's speed to such a specific number. And that makes Luke pretty bad in my eyes. I don't know, maybe there's something I'm missing. But Luke just seems pretty bad to mid at best to me. And since we have seen all of, like, the Street Fighter cards come out, there aren't any, like, real surprises that would change my opinion of him. I don't know, maybe something in TMNT will, like, totally gas him up. He is getting, I think the All and Fire symbol is in TMNT, but Earth, oh no wait, Earth, okay. So Luke is getting stuff on all 3 of his symbols in TMNT, so there is that. He might get something, but it's such a specific number to hit that just makes him really hard to play in my mind. But yeah, we'll ignore all this stuff, and we'll talk about the other 2 characters coming in the other Street Fighter 6 decks. So Chun-Li, Martial Arts Master. Enhance, once per turn, clear 1 kick card from your card pool. Again, kick is just it's a keyword, it's a tribe type deal. It has no meaningful effects except for when a card calls for it. Clear 1 kick card from your card pool. Ready 1 foundation. Your attack gets +2 speed. This is fine. So how attack strings, as they're called in-game, work is they're played on progressive difficulty. So the more attacks you play in a turn, the harder it gets to play those cards. So Chun-Li says once per turn, it allows you to clear an attack from your card pool, and your attacks are much easier to play for the rest of the turn. You effectively played an attack for free, more or less. Which is, like, again, it's not bad. What? Go back to your home. Again, yeah, it's not bad. Obviously, it kind of had to be a once per turn because clearing cards from your card pool is very strong. We saw the aggro character Pony Tsunatori. Her whole thing is constantly clearing stuff from her card pool at the cost of discarding cards and gaining counters and all that. She's very strong. She's one of the more premier aggro characters in the format currently. Oh, and running a foundation also allows you to play more attacks because you need to commit foundations to fast checks. And finally, attack gets +2 speed, which just means it's hard to block. And response, after your attack is completely blocked, your rival freezes one committed foundation. So, freezing a committed foundation or tapped foundation, freeze basically means it does not ready at the beginning of the next phase. Also, hello, Richard Doyle. It does not ready itself at the beginning of your opponent's turn. So, effectively, like, to compare it to Magic, it would be like forcing one of your opponent's mana to not ready at the start of their turn. Obviously, it requires a complete block, which, like, yeah, that's fine. And a lot of times your rival may commit a foundation to pass that block anyway, so if they do completely block it, Chun-Li gets to freeze that foundation. Funny enough, I was actually kind of down on Chun-Li originally, but the more I'm talking about her, the more I'm actually kind of into her. Air, notably, has a lot of stuff about clearing your card pool and getting benefits when you clear your card pool. So it ties into that. She's kind of like, the more I read her, she's kind of like Ryu to me in the sense that she'll probably be fine, if not good. I don't see her running a tournament. Same as Ryu. I would say she's probably a little worse than Ryu, just because that Ryu can put stats on everything and draws a bunch of cards for effectively free. Whereas if your opponent does completely block your attacks, Chun-Li makes it harder to then play on your turn. Really just the main thing, is just we've never really seen this sort of freeze idea pay off. She also has Order in Water, which ties into cards like Ice Sword Execution, name one foundation, commit all copies of that foundation in their state, and discard momentum. The stack is +5 damage for use one Bravo Foundation. Granted, this is a weapon, it's not a kick. So it doesn't totally play into her game plan where she wants to clear kicks out of her card pool. But also, who knows? Like, kicks are in a weird position right now where there aren't that many good ones. So who knows? You might not even play kicks with her anyway, except for like a couple, just to get that first ability. I don't know. She's fine. She's not really a character I will run, but she'll probably be fine. Now, Jamie is the character that people are definitely high up on. And I was a little bit down on this character when he initially was revealed. We'll talk about him. Response, commit. Once per turn, after you play an attack, add 1 drink counter to this card. Just play the game and you will get a drink counter, effectively. You have to commit him, and it's only once per turn. Can they breed Tycho? Penny Arcade stuff hasn't been legal in, probably a decade. Well, with that in mind, L1 Drink Careless card. What do Drink Careless do? Well, Tenacious, which, again, means you can play this ability while your character is committed. Your attack gets +1 speed and +1 damage for each string count on this card, max 4. If your attack is completely blocked, ready this card. So, effectively, over the course of 4 turns, eventually your attack will get +4/+4, which is, bonkers stats. I have to make that clear. +4/+4 is an insane amount of stats. Is Yan1 the symbol for one of the reversals? Yes, and we'll get to that. We'll also get to another one of his cards that I think are going to actually make Jamie a bit of a menace. But yeah, so when I first looked at this character, I didn't think he was going to be that good. Like, obviously, +4/+4 on everything is scary. But it has to be done over the course of 4 different turns. Because that's a hard once per turn ability. You have to commit him, etc., etc. So turn 1 it goes +1/+1. Turn 2 it goes +2/+2, etc., etc. And turns work very differently in UVS compared to other card games. So, like, when one turn in UVS is probably more comparable to, like, 2 or 3 turns in a different card game if you're playing attacks. Because, in a way, each attack you play is sort of its own turn in a way. So with that in mind, with no defense on face, and 22 health, he does have the water symbol, which is a very strong defensive symbol, but I wasn't sure if that was going to be enough to get him to survive other aggro decks, because Jamie is very much an aggro deck. Like, he wants to play a bunch of attacks, he wants to add a ton of stats to all his moves. And wants to ready himself if you block it so he can commit himself again to pass checks. And actually, because it was brought up by a different person, not here, but, he's actually a little similar in a way to Smiling Titan, who was a bit of a menace in a few formats ago. Notably, your attack gets +X speed and or +X damage. That used to say and. It got errata to say or. And X equals your attack's parent difficulty -4. So, the whole game plan, and once per turn after attack deals 6 or more damage rate to this character. So, Smiling Titan's whole thing was she would play these big donkey ass moves that were like 8, 9 difficulty attacks and give tons of stats to them. Jamie is a much slower kind of game plan where he wants to survive multiple turns so he can get his stat game going, and eventually he's just gonna be slinging, 5 attacks at you that are all for like 10 speed, 10 damage if you let him, effectively. But that requires him to survive those 4 turns. But as we'll get into when we look into the attacks, that's not quite the case. So on that note, actually, let's just look at what comes in the Chun-Li deck beyond just the characters. It comes with a 0 diff action, Again, difficulty and checks. When you play a card, you look at the top left corner, look at its difficulty. You mill the top card of your deck. You look at the bottom right at the control here. If the control is equal to or greater than your difficulty, you pass a check and can continue on. If it's lower, you have to commit foundations in your stage or your character to pass that check. With that in mind, drive parry, response, rival's turn. After rival plays an enhanced ability on a foundation, cancel it. Sure. It having the infinity symbol is probably the biggest deal here. Infinity just means you can play in every deck. There's a number of cancels in the format currently, mostly on like Life and Void, I think. So every deck having access to this ability is nice. Like, the only downside is it doesn't clear itself from the card pool, so you do have to fit in and do progressive difficulty. And after you play this card, ready 1 foundation. Again, sure. This allows you to block out a bit better because you're able to have more of your stage open and are able to commit more cards if you need to. Section's fine. It might see play in like a few sideboards if there's like a really strong foundation you want to cancel. Something like... Whoops. Something like Lane Skill you can cancel. Yeah, as Richard Doyle brings up, it can cancel the universal speed damage reset we got, moment of normalcy. Just commit, return this attack to its print speed or damage. Yeah. The main thing though is you can only play on your rival's turn. So it's mainly going to be used for defensive purposes. Like, you can't use it to cancel on your turn. But it can cancel like Lane Skill, flip, discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards. Notably, your opponent still has to pay the cost for cards like this. If it has this colon, that means they will be out 2 cards, effectively. There are probably other instances where this card can be useful. Again, it'll probably see... It's not gonna see, like, main decking, I don't think. Not like, Filled with Doubt, which seals an attack, effectively blanks it. Yeah, it's fine. It'll probably see some play in sideboards if there's, like, a very strong foundation that you need to cancel. None are really springing to mind right now, but... yeah. So that's the only action this deck is getting. Aerial Kikosho. Actually, let's... Yeah, we'll look at Aerial. We'll just go in order. So, this is a card people are kind of losing their mind over. Response, hand, drive 1. Drive is a new mechanic being added in this set. Or not set, in these Challenger decks. Drive effectively says commit 1 foundation or spend 1 momentum. Which momentum is effectively meter you get when you land attacks. But yeah, response hand. So that's when it's in your hand. Drive 1, add this card to your card pool. After a completely blocked attack resolves, try to play this attack from your card pool. It gets -2 difficulty and +2 speed. So notably, you can play this card on your opponent's turn. This is a callback to an old ability in old Universus called Reversal, which says reveal this card from your hand after opponent's attack is resolved. If a player with this card successfully blocked the attack, they may immediately play this attack from their hand, proceeding as if they played a regular attack. And once this attack has resolved, his opponent continues with his combat phase. So yeah, it's Reversal back in a slightly different form. Notably, this effect can be used, even though it is also a reversal, it can be used on your turn. So if your opponent completely blocks one of your attacks, you can play it and you get the -2 difficulty and +2 speed. Beyond that, however, it's basically a blank attack. That being said, if we scroll back up to Jamie here, this just says commit once per turn after you play an attack. Does not say your turn. So with that in mind, Jamie gets, assuming he's ready, which he should be, considering if you're doing your thing and your opponent blocked the attack, you get to add an additional drink counter to Jamie on your opponent's turn. So all of a sudden, that whole idea of it takes 4 different turns for Jamie to get rolling starts not being as true. He can get 2 counters over the course of 1 turn cycle, effectively. With that in mind, despite that though, I don't think Aerial Kokosho is going to be super prevalent, because as mentioned, it is effectively a blank attack. I think certain characters are going to run it, for sure. Like, Jamie gets a lot of value out of it. Another one of the Tekken characters, Paul Phoenix, gets some decent use of it. Because he says, discard 1 card, your attack gets stunned too. And stun, effectively, forces your opponent to commit 2 of their foundations. Or commit foundations equal to the stun rating. So Paul can stun you out on your turn, which can be very detrimental. Actually, wait, no, never mind. He cannot. That's a different, there's a different reversal-like ability, not Aerial Kokosho, that Paul can use. But he cannot use Aerial Kokosho because he does not have the air symbol. What happened to Paul's hair? That's Tekken 8 Paul. Yeah, it is 7 damage. Obviously, if they block it, their turn is probably over. But yeah, Eric Kokosho is a good card. I think it's only going. I don't think it's going to be like prevalent. It's not going to be played in every deck that can run it. Just because, again, it is effectively, once you get past the fact that you can't play on your opponent's turn, it is effectively a blank attack. Which, some of those can be good sometimes, but not always. And it's not even technically blank, so even if the character Ryukyu, whose whole thing is playing blank attacks, not that she could use it because she doesn't have the air symbol, but the rest of these are going to be probably kind of whatever. Arrow Kick, 4 low for 4. After you play this deck, it gets +2 speed if your character is ready, or +2 damage if your character is committed. So obviously, it's Jamie's whole thing. Jamie likes flipping between being ready and committed, so he can get either speed or damage off of this. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's fine. It's not gonna see any actual play, but, like, if you're doing, like, Challenger deck limited, yeah, it works. Backshaver. After this deals 4 more damage, frees 1 rival foundation, and is in fact a throw. So, again, for the record, throws do half damage even if they are completely blocked. So you are always guaranteed damage. There are cards that circumvent that. There are cards that say if you block a throw, it deals no damage, or even if this attack is blocked, it deals no damage, that kind of thing. So pretty much the whole thing is you'll get your full 4/4 with Jamie, and this attack is basically guaranteed to do 4 damage, or they take the 4 on the chin and freeze 1 foundation. That's assuming they have a committed foundations, which if they're only taking 4 on the chin, they probably won't. Again, card's fine. It's not going to see any constructed play. It's mostly just to fill the deck out. Yeah, there's not much to say about this one. Break-In! This is another case of what I was talking about, where Jamie's once per turn honestly isn't real. So Fury Kick, powerful 3, powerful. What that means is you spend momentum, and for each momentum you spend, powerful specifically says this attack gets +3 damage. It would be equal to the powerful rating, so the damage it does, or it gets +3 damage for each momentum you spend, and momentum is, again, meter that says that you get when your attacks land. So response, drive 1. After you play this attack, add 1 drink counter to your character, ready your character. This card is crazy. Very kind of inoffensive on the surface. But obviously, it goes very good in Jamie, because you just play it. You get 2 drink counters, effectively. Assuming it's your first attack you play. You do have to either commit a foundation or spend a momentum, but, like, getting +2/+2 on the first attack of your turn, the first attack of the game, is pretty damn good. And yeah, this is effectively a 7 for 7, kind of right out of the gate. At bare minimum, really. Yeah, accelerate your token ramp, basically. So theoretically, you kind of, this is a little bit Magical Christmas Land, but if you play Break-In as your first attack in the game, you get 2 counters. Then your opponent goes, you block their attack, you play Eric Kosho. That's 3 counters in effectively the first turn cycle in the game. That's pretty good. Also just randomly has powerful 3, which, like, is a little, like, quaint compared to the rest of this stuff, but powerful in EX ends games. Like, it also being a momentum out that allows you to pump this attack even more is crazy. And granted, the ready your character effect seems really strong. And in any other circumstance it would be. The only thing is, I can't think of many characters with the water symbol that commit themselves. Like, actually, let's just look. Obviously in... Oh, I just realized I have a sub for Rochester Retro now. That's cute. Let's just look. Commit. That doesn't count. Essek can use it, I guess. He plays with spells, so I don't know why you really be running Breaking than him. Fjord, I guess, is okay. It being a response means you can't, like, commit Fjord, then use that ability. Jun, sure. Godzilla, no. Kendo, her ability activates anyway. Kanoko, maybe, but Kanoko isn't a real character. That's a bit mean. She's fine, but, like, I don't think that will break her. Fresh cut grass, maybe. Toru, maybe. Bax, maybe, but he plays around range and weapons, so... Actually, Bowie would get a lot of use out of him, but that requires you to play Bowie. Anyway, my point is there's not a lot of water characters that want to re-ready themselves. So I mostly see this only being played in Jamie, but I don't know. Like, readying yourself is a very strong ability, so this is, you know, it can see play in the future. Falling Crane. Kick stun 1. So automatically just force your opponent to commit a foundation. That's nice. After the stack is blocked, rival adds the top card of their deck to their card pool face down. This actually isn't too bad. Forcing your opponent to stuff their card pool is good. It means blocking your attacks is harder. There's a number of characters that play really well into stuffing your opponent's card pool. As mentioned, Jun does that after attack deals damage to rival as top card of their deck card pool face down. It also means if you stuff, like, an important card, they're not going to be drawing that later. Notably also, it just has to be blocked. It can't, doesn't say completely blocked. So, excuse me. So they can half block it and still see this effect go off. And it is 6 damage, so your opponent may want to block it. There's probably some character where this card is really good. I don't see it getting too much play though, but it has more potential than some of the other stuff we've seen. 100 lightning kicks. When this card is cleared from your card pool during the combat phase, your rival loses 1 health. This effect cannot reduce your rival's health below 1. Sure. It plays into what Chun-Li does, where she clears kicks. And it burns your opponent for 1 if you do so. And there are other characters that clear, that this might be good in. I don't think it'll see playing like Pony, but it might, considering this response, which says, discard 1 card after this card leaves your card pool, add to your hand. Specifying your turn so you can't just repeat blocks over and over again. There are probably better cards that you could play in Pony, but if you're going for like a budget option, I could see this being pretty good. Because Pony's already got a ton of discard potential, and cards that allow you to draw more when you discard, so discarding 1 card isn't totally a cost. Depends on who you're playing as, obviously. Yeah, card's neat. Much like Falling Crane, probably has potential somewhere, but it probably won't see that much play currently. Phantom Sway. 4 low for 5, EX2, kick, drive 1, so commit 1 or spend momentum. Commit and freeze 1 rival foundation. This card is actually not bad. Oh, and since I mentioned it, Blitz is a new pseudo-enhance that was introduced in Attack on Titan. Effectively, it goes between the response step and the enhance step. Effectively, it's an enhance that is automatically played before any other enhances. This was supposedly done because players had a bit of confusion or new players, I should say, had a bit of confusion as to effects not immediately happening when an attack gets played. I don't know that, like, it's entirely a real issue, but also I'm not a game designer, so. Actually, that's a lie. I did do a little bit of game designing. But, whoops. Effectively commit 1, target, commit, and freeze. Because notably, this does not say your rival commits and freezes 1 foundation. It says you do. So being able to target down 1 specific foundation and freeze it too. So it's not going to be usable on your opponent's next turn. So you can commit down either a very strong offensive piece or a very strong defensive piece. Depending on, how your turn's going, what your goal for the turn is. It also just randomly having EX, which means you can spend momentum to make it faster, is nice. Kind of a weird one to evaluate, because it does, on paper, it looks actually pretty good. Just being able to hard commit something down is an ability that is very sought after. We see cards like, oh, what the fuck is that AOT Foundation? I'm literally playing in my Porco deck. Loss of Consciousness. Remove after this card enters your discard pile during the enhanced step, seal 1 rival foundation. So seal means the card is effectively blank. There's no text on it for that turn. Commit is effectively the same thing unless it has a tenacious ability, and it can't be used to pass checks. So that kind of ability is very sought after. So with that in mind, Phantom Sway could actually be pretty good. it being a 5 diff is a little iffy. Um, but I could totally see Phantom Sway being played. There's probably better things you could be doing, but it's probably of the sort of like deck chaff that we've seen thus far, it's probably the strongest. Uh, Swagger Step. If you have ready card in your stage's combat phase, this deck gets +1 speed and +1 damage. Sure. Again, it's one of those cards that just kind of it does it plays into what both these characters are doing. Both Jamie Ray's himself, Chun-Li Ray's herself readies a card after kicking something from the card pool. It's okay. Tencho Kicks. While this card is in your card pool, your rival's high attacks get -2 speed. Weird, but okay. After your kick attack deals damage, your rival loses 1 health. So effectively an additional +1 damage threat on any attack. This card's weird. Like, it's both a defensive option specifically against high attacks, which there are a lot of really strong high attacks in the format. Pony especially plays a lot of high attacks. But Pony's issue isn't really, or I should say Pony's strength isn't really like throwing a bunch of high speed moves at you. She just plays a billion attacks. So I don't know how good this would be against her. And after your kick attack deals damage, your rival loses 1 health. This would be good if we had really good kicks in the format. Probably goes really hard in retro. Where there's a lot of really strong kicks and you have Ida's kick package. Yeah. Cards, whatever. Again, it's a card that would probably see play if there were strong kicks in the format. Also, ironically, it is a sort of pseudo counter to like Ariel Kokosho, I guess. Not that I think it realistically needed a counter, but and so specific anyway, but whatever. Anyway, we're gonna get into foundations now for this deck, which is effectively what if your mana could do things in Magic the Gathering. Each foundation, well, I shouldn't say each foundation. Most foundations have an ability that do a variety of different things. Obviously this one says sacrifice. There are also flip costs, which effectively make the foundation blank, but still playable. Sacrifice, they go to your discard pile. Remove, they go for your remove from game pile, etc., etc. Before I start talking about this one, I'm gonna go grab a refill real quick though. Okay. I'm back, and I'll be honest. Oh, what the fuck the point of this card is. Sacrifice, add one kick card from your discard pile to your card pool. But for why? Like, it kind of ties into Chun-Li's whole thing about kicking kicks from her card pool, but like, I don't know, play kicks. You don't need to lose a foundation to do that. Yeah, I guess with military airship, there is some sort of synergy there. I don't know, that's like a lot of pieces when you could just like play the attack. I don't know. This card seems weirdly bad. It being a 6-check is nice. But that's like kind of it. Dance of the Phoenix. Unique kick, which unique means you can only have one of them in your stage. And if you play another, you sacrifice it. Once per turn, response. After your attack is blocked, your rival freezes one committed foundation. If your rival has 10 or more foundations, commit and freeze one rival foundation. Not bad. There's probably better 3 diffs that you could be playing. Since 3 difficulty is a little bit of a weird spot, especially depending on the deck. It being specifically only blocked is nice. I believe, yeah, okay, that's your rival picks the foundation they freeze. That's a little iffy. If they have 10 more though, commit and freeze one rival foundation. That's nice. Honestly, if this said after an attack is blocked, your rival freezes one committed foundation, the rest of it, I could see this card being really good. Because that just makes a very strong defensive piece. You block one of their things, and you get to they either freeze one of their things, or you get to commit down something and freeze it. Which again, it being targeted means you can commit down and freeze a really strong offense or a really strong defensive tool. But it only being your turn is a little iffy. I mean, Arrow Kikosho and all that, but yeah, card's fine. Probably better things you could be doing with your 3-diff slot, but Elegance and Beauty. Enhance, commit. This attack gets -2 speed. Sure. Like, I'm not gonna say no to speed hate, I guess. That's literally all this does. It's a... Wait, why is it a kick? Whatever. I know that's probably for balance reasons. It's just very funny to see Chun-Li playing an instrument and it being a kick type card. But yeah, card's fine. Or okay, being a little more fair, it's not fine. It's bad, but like for your challenger decks, for your limited, sealed, all that kind of thing, yeah, you need speed hate in there. So like, for that matter, it's fine. Guardian Angel of Chinatown. Flip after your rival plays an ability that reduces the damage of your attack. Its damage cannot be reduced by your rival's effects this turn. So this is actually pretty damn good. There's a lot of damage reduction in the format currently. So even though it's only one attack that you're stopping, from having its damage being reduced, that's a big deal. Especially if, like, an attack would kill, but your opponent has a damage reduction thing on board. So that could stop you from killing and potentially end your turn. This says no. Yeah, there's honestly not too much to say. It being a 1-diff is crazy. This card could easily be a 2 difficulty foundation. Um, but yeah, it's probably gonna see play. Uh, the only thing that would really stop it is there's not a ton of characters with the water symbol that are super playable right now, mostly just because fucking AOT is the big format, kind of all the strongest characters come from like AOT or Godzilla and all that. And only Godzilla there has water. So like that's probably the only thing that's realistically stopping this from being played is just no one plays water. Um but yeah, other than that the card's good. Uh Hates lectures. Yun mentioned in 2025, or is that whatever? Yeah, no, that's Yun. That's not Yang. Yang has the spiky hair. Flip after you play a kick card, it gains Breaker 2. I guess that's why some of these cards just randomly have kick on them. I mean, yeah, giving something Breaker 2, which, for the record, since this is a keyword I haven't talked about, Breaker is an ability you play, when you block an attack. And it says your opponent's next check gets, minus whatever the Breaker value is. So with that in mind, like, Breaker 2 is very strong, and a lot of times it will just end your opponent's turn on the spot. But it being a kick card, or it specifically has to be a kick card, makes this a little rougher to play. Also, very funny that this is a 2 difficulty 4 check when Guardian Angel of Chinatown is a 1-5. And that card's much better in my opinion. Again, if kicks were at all relevant, and I don't see the Street Fighter Challenger decks really making a difference there, this card might be played, but as it stands, eh. Inherited Will. Again, another kick. What enhance once per turn. Remove 1 kick card from your discard pile. This attack gets +2 speed. I mean, this is kind of another card where, like, yeah, this is pretty good. Theoretically, anyway, if kicks were relevant. But they're not, and they probably won't be. Unless we get a surge of them in, like, TMNT. Which, does TMNT even have air? I don't think it does. Yeah, isn't there one of those cards that's kind of only bad or mid because of the current meta circumstances? Having to remove a kick is a little iffy. Obviously, we've seen a lot of foundations, which is generally speaking what you want to remove when you're removing cards. But yeah, card's fine. If kicks ever see Resurgent, he'll probably see play. Street Hero. Flip. Add 1 card from your card pool to your hand. Only playable if you have blocked 2 or more attacks this turn. So this card is a slightly worse version of another card. That being Struggling with Studies. Flip. If this is your rival's 3rd or greater attack this combat phase, add 1 card from your card pool to your hand. Struggling with Studies also has this, which is nice. But yeah, very similar cards. They even have the same difficulty check and block modifier. Only thing different is the symbols. The main reason that this is slightly worse is because of how it is worded. Because this says only playable if you have blocked 2 or more attacks this turn. Whereas Struggling with Studies says if this is your rival's third or greater attack this combat phase. So for those who might not be aware, Street Hero might seem better, but chances are you're not going to be blocking every attack your opponent throws out. The sort of back and forth of choosing what attacks to take and which to block is an important part of UES. One I'm still quite bad at. But with that in mind, Struggling with Studies is better because it relies on your opponent playing 3 attacks, which if they're going on big screen, they probably will. Whereas this requires you to block a lot. Basically, you would, to compare, you have had to block 2 out of the 3 attacks with Struggling with Studies if they were similar. Or, well, you know what I'm saying. I'm stumbling a little bit here, but it requiring you to block attacks specifically makes it a bit worse than Struggling with Studies. I still think this card... Oh, why did that start playing? I still think it's probably gonna see a bit of play. Again, it kind of depends on what water characters see play. Is kind of just the end result here, I think. If there are water characters with the water symbol that see play in the meta, it'll probably be after Louisville, because I don't expect very many people to be taking Street Fighter cards to Louisville, despite the fact that they'll be legal. But yeah, if there's water characters in the format, this will probably be played. If not, it won't see play. Then Young Boss of Chinatown. Tenacious Flip. After a rival's combat phase begins, ready this foundation. Yeah, sure. It's very similar to a fuck, what is that Mirio card? Nice Try. Nice Try is a 2-diff that says commit the stack is -2 speed. And after a rival's combat begins, ready this foundation, play while committed. This is obviously different. It doesn't have the speed hate. It flips as a cost. Whereas Nice Try will always ready. It's a 1-diff compared to a 2-diff. This card's good. There's probably better things you can be doing with your 1-diffs. I mean, if you're going for a very aggro heavy package, like if you're playing Jamie, for example, I could see this being played. I could probably see this getting played in Pony. Maybe. It's hard to say. There's a lot of... Pony already does a lot of readying with just her standard foundation base, so I don't know if she'll play this. But yeah, this card's fine. I'll probably see a lot more play after Nice Try rotates out. We've already seen a little less play of Nice Try. Just because there's, again, there's kind of a lot better things you could be doing. But, yeah, card's decent. But yeah, now let's talk about the Ryu deck. We've already talked about the characters. If you weren't here, basically, Ryu's good. I wouldn't say he's like top tier or anything, but he's good. Luke, I think, is probably the worst out of all these 4. But yeah. Burnout. Zero diff action. Forecheck. Enhance your attack gets +2 damage. Sure, I guess. And then the response, drive 1. After you play this card, your rival commits 1 card in their stage. Especially compared to the Chun-Li action, this card's pretty bad. +1, +2 damage is on an action that doesn't clear itself from your card pool is pretty middling, and only stunning yourself or spending momentum to have your opponent stun 1 is pretty middling. You can hit that response if you just block with it as well, which is okay, I guess. Notably, you can do that with Dry Parry. Dry Parry even has a better block mod than Burnout. This, where my opinion of Drive Parry was you'll probably see play in side decks, I don't see Burnout seeing any play at all. Card is pretty bad in my opinion. Adventure Impaler. Charge kick, blitz, drive 1. If this attack is not blocked, draw 2 cards and discard 1 card. It being a very low damage move means that your opponent probably doesn't want to block it. Obviously it has 4 speed to coincide with Luke's whole gimmick. Obviously people do a lot to draw 2 cards. People do a lot to draw 1 card. That being said, this being a 3 diff, playing at the end of your string effectively, it's kinda bad to mid at best, I'd say. Obviously, this will probably never see playing constructed. There's probably even better things that... I mean, obviously, in sealed formats, you have to deal with what you're given, but... And this is legally one of the cards in your deck. Yeah, cards is kind of bad. It saying is not blocked instead of dealing damage too is such a kind of big deal in a lot of ways. Because not blocked means they don't even have to attempt to block it, where if an attack says deal damage, they can half block it, take damage, and the effect would go off. This has to be they are consciously just taking it on the chin, which is always worse compared to deal damage effects. Yeah, card's pretty bad. Crouching medium kick, Ryu's favorite thing. After this attack deals damage, your next attack is +3 damage. Sure, I guess. I don't have much else to say here, I'll be real. It's like... good and limited and sealed. That's about it. Hashogeki. After this attack deals damage, add 1 card from your hand to your momentum. And drive 1. After this attack resolves, add 1 card to your stage from your stage to the top of your deck. So add a foundation in your stage to the top of your deck after it resolves. This card's actually kind of interesting. Has to deal damage. And then you add 1 card from your hand to your momentum. So you are going down a card to use this effect. Which isn't... considering it's a Ryu and he casually becomes an 8-hander if a deck is blocked, that may not be terrible. If you're just going for like a poke turn, I could see this card being okay. And you can guarantee your next check to play your string larger. And in fact, you can commit a foundation if it like you commit a 6 check and you put that 6 check that you just committed on top of your deck. That could be something. Realistically, I don't see this card getting played, but it's neat. Like in casual stuff, I could see you running some of this card. Luke Sweep. Look at him sticking his toesies out. After you play this attack, the X ability, add the top card of your deck to your momentum. So effectively refreshing your momentum. It's very similar to a Deku card. Being Fajin. Being Fajin Flurry. After this attack receives a speed bonus up to your grade, the top card of your deck to your momentum. It has EX3, so you spend momentum, you give it 3 speed, and gets the momentum back. Luke's Sweep is kind of similar. Whole idea behind this is you spend the 1 momentum, you get back, and then you use Luke's ability. That'll probably never happen because your opponent will probably interact with this card in between turns or in between enhanced steps and make it not 4 speed. Which I mean, I guess you could. Whatever. I'm getting a little into the weeds here. It's fine. It's actually slightly better than Fajin just because it's a low instead of a mid, but makes it a little trickier to block. That being said, Fajin mostly only sees play in like Deku 6, and like occasionally Rodan. So similar to that card, I don't see this card being played too much. I think it's certainly playable. But I don't see it going like too crazy. Six Dekus, that's too many. How many Tokas do we have? We only have 4 Tokas, so there's that. But yeah, I mean, God, do we have 5 errands? Do we only have 4 errands? Protagonist always gets the most printed characters. A Pale Rider. Echo, which Echo says after the attack resolves, spend a momentum. And you can play it again. Drive 1, you may clear 1 other attack from your card pool rather than spending 1 momentum to play the cost of this attack's Echo ability. This card is actually super interesting. Excuse me. We saw a similar effect in Storm of Arrows. Which says you may spend ranged weapon attacks from your card pool as though they were momentum to pay for this attack's Echo ability. Which saw play until it got read. Because it got rad to say you may clear 1 other. It used to be you could clear Storm of Arrows from your card pool to give yourself free progression, effectively. They realized with Pale Rider that says you may clear 1 other. I could actually see this being pretty good Rodan. Because Ronan has the all symbol. Rodan getting another punch that he can add to his punch package with repeat 100%. And all that. He's already kind of playing off of progressive a little bit when he plays oh, I can't remember that Deku 5 card, but uh obviously doesn't do much beyond just being 4 low for 5s in a row, which if you have any way to add stats onto this card is pretty alright. So I could totally see this card getting played in certain decks. Like I said, Rodan I think can make decent use out of this card. Just because Rodan will randomly make this a 6 to 8 speed attack. And potentially more damage because of Science Bros. Yeah, it'll depend on the character for sure, but I can see this being played. Uh, it's just a matter of having a character that adds stats to attacks. Yeah, clearing card pool, doing Echo is always good. Rising Uppercut. This was the attack I was referring to with Paul a while back. When you try to block a non-ranged high attack with this card, reduce the attack speed to 4. I mean, this sort of static between blocks, between zone transits, attack or blocking is very strong. We saw a similar ability with an old card. Whoops, that's what it's called. With an older card called Evading Copy. When you attempt to block with this card, return your rival's attack to its parent, so just be in zone. Obviously, this has to be a non-ranged, and it has to be a high. But it having a 0 high block mod is very nice, because that means you only have to check a 4 if you're blocking a high. Notably, though, response, drive 1, after you completely block an attack with this card. It does say completely block. I'm sorry, I did miss that part. Try to play this card and attack after that attack resolves. So unlike Aerial Kikosho, if you block with this card, you get to play it on your opponent's turn. Which, again, is pretty good. It only being a 4 high for 4 with effectively no other stats is a little iffy, but if you get to add stats on it, like, say, from Paul Phoenix, discard 1 attack, or 1 card, your attack gains stun 2. You stun your opponent out on their, or you stun your opponent on their turn. Kind of close to ending their turn if they don't have the foundations to continue going. And you also just add some decent damage, which provokes them to block it, which then clutters their card pool even more, because they just blocked an attack on their own turn. Now, obviously, you can only run 4 of these in a deck, and it has to be against high attacks, which, that being said, there are a lot of really strong high attacks in the format currently. So yeah, I can totally see if there's a character that gives stats very nicely, like, say, Paul. Or, hell, if you are playing Luke, this goes very good in Luke, which, yeah, makes sense. It's part of his deck. I could see this being a very obnoxious card to play against. In a lot of ways, I think is actually a little better than Aerial Kikosho, because you block with it and you get to play it, compared to Aerial Kikosho, which you have to block and attack, and then play Aerial Kokosho, which means you're losing 2 cards in your hand, which may not be a big deal, but depending on the character you're playing, it could be. Yeah, if I think Rising Uppercut will eventually find a deck to use it. I think this card is quite strong in the prevalence of high attacks in the format. Cards like Battle Lore Release, Lethal Slash. Let's just look at strong high attacks in the format currently. Aerial Kokosho is one. Jaw Titan's Bite. Gonna see Himalayan Porco. Unfazed has seen a little bit of a drop in usage, but it was played a lot. High Velocity Slice, Swarmed by Titans, Ravages of War. Yeah, my point is there's a lot of very strong high attacks in the format currently that using this card can in fact be quite good. Sandblast. If a rival has not taken damage this turn, commit 1 rival foundation with difficulty 1 or less. So again, another targeted commit down. That's usually pretty good. This being a 6 mid for 2 is so weird. Like, I guess the idea is you -1 speed to make it 5 and then give it +2 damage to make it a 5 mid for 4. And you commit down one thing specifically. Weirdly enough, I was gonna say weirdly enough I could see this being played, but probably not. I think if you're playing Luke, you might play this card. Just because, again, targeted committing is very strong. But beyond that, like, this card's whatever in the end. Oh, there we go. Shin Hashogeki. After this attack receives a damage bonus or 2 or greater, your rival commits 1 foundation. Considering Ryu just adds straight up +2 damage to all his moves, that's effectively stun 1. He also has powerful 3, which means if you spend your momentum, that's 4 damage bonuses to pop off. And if I'm remembering correctly, each momentum you spend, because you can spend any amount of momentum for powerful and EX abilities. However, I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong about this, I'm pretty sure that each instance of momentum spent, even when you spend it all at once, technically in the game state, it counts as different instances of that +3 damage. So if you are a character that generates momentum very quickly, I can't think of any on the fire that have the fire symbol right off the top of my head. But there's probably some. This card can be pretty good at just randomly stunning out your opponent's board and making them unable to block. So yeah, I think if obviously in Ryu it gets a stun 1 right off the gate. Ryu or Luke, because you can -1 speed. That's the whole gimmick. I think, though, assuming I'm correct, I think the main play for this will be through the powerful ability. Which, again, if there's a character with fire that generates momentum like crazy, this can be very strong in that. In fact, actually, I think there's one I talked about earlier in the stream. Not that I think he'll see play because of this. Yeah, Big Mouth Titan has fire. Which, like, yeah, I don't know. It's good in him. I guess, if you want to play Big Mouth Titan. There's probably other characters that can make really good use of Shin Hashogeki, but... Solar Plexus Strike. After this deck, stun 1. After this deck deals damage, choose one card in your rival's discard pile and add to the top of their deck. So, effectively, you hit them, and you choose a attack or something, or something with a bad check, and you add it to the top of their deck. So, if they can't draw into it, or mill it, or get it off the top of their deck, their next check is going to be bad. Which means their next chance at blocking your attack is worse. Now, that being said, there are quite a lot of ways to draw cards and mill yourself in this format. So, with that in mind, I don't see this card being particularly good. Especially since, yeah, if you put an attack on their top of their deck, then they just draw it. You kind of just handed them a free attack when it turns over to their turn, assuming you don't kill them. But yeah, I think this card's pretty bad. It seems neat at first, but once you actually start thinking about it, yeah, I don't see this card being played. Battle holds the answer. Tenacious, your turn. Add this card to the top of your deck. Yeah, sure. It being a 6 check means, this is actually pretty decent. It being Tenacious too actually helps a lot. Because you can commit it, to pass a check during your turn. And then you add it to the top of your deck. And means your next attack is basically going to go off without a hitch, unless your opponent mills you, which can happen, but that's a little trickier than self-mill, ironically enough. It can also go well with Ryu, because he stacks, his deck, when his, responsibility goes off. So yeah, I think this would probably go really good in Ryu. It's probably characters that can use it that really want to string out, and just guaranteeing that check after they've committed this can be really nice. Just a pretty good card. Come on. Endlessly Doting. Commit this non-throw attack gets -2 speed. If it deals damage, ready this card. This is actually kind of interesting. So you're reducing the speed, and then the idea is probably you half block the attack. You take like 2 or 3 damage, then you get to ready this. And also it ties in with Luke's whole thing of saying minus speed if it's 5, -2 damage. Card's neat. I don't think it's going to see too much play. But, like, it has its role somewhere, probably. I'm just not 100% sure where. I'm not sure if there's any characters that do, like, specifically minus both stats. Usually it's minus speed or minus damage. Well, yeah. Card's fine, pretty much. Excessively buff forearms, which is one of my favorite card names in this, in these decks. Flip this attack gets +2 damage. Sure. There are better ways to add damage in limited. This card is going to be good, yeah. It's like it's going to be your only source of damage on your foundation base. It's fine. It's not going to see any actual constructed play, but it's fine. Fist of the Ages. Commit. This attack gets +1 speed and +1 damage, and Tenacious Flip. This attack gets +1 speed and +1 damage. So, the main way I would see this card getting played is if you're ending a string and you're trying to get a kill in. You effectively add... Excuse me. You effectively add +2/+2 to an attack, and that's decent enough stats that hopefully it'll push your opponent either into lethal, or it'll either give you lethal or push your opponent into a place where you can more easily get to lethal. That being said, I don't think this will be played just because the 2 difficulty slot is very contested right now. It might see some play in Porco, maybe. Again, adding those stats can go a long way. Yeah, I don't know. Card's fine. Probably not. It's not anything crazy. It's not gonna see a ton of play, probably, but... My Fist solves my problem. Flip, after an attack is played, change its speed to 4. Pretty good. 4 is the number Luke wants to play at, so that's its whole thing. Trying to think, like, what moves or what attacks really get hit by changing its speed to 4. There's not a ton that I can think of. Again, this is probably another card that if you're playing Luke, you'll probably play it just so you can get your little your whole gimmick going. Excuse me. The problem is I don't see Luke being played. So, not now I'm gaming, which is my favorite card in this entire these entire decks, just because of the name. Response, commit, check 7, flip. Lots of costs on this card, and for honestly pretty good reason. After attack is played, add it to its owner's hand. Your rival plays an attack at the end of the string, planning on killing you this turn. They commit out to play it. You use this, and they add it back to their hand, and now you're alive, and they would have to either play it again and check well, or end their turn. That being said, this does have a lot of constraints on it. Commit and flip is already pretty big, but having to check a7 is very hard when usually the highest control check is 6, and even that's pretty rare. I can see why they put a ton of guardrails on this card, though, because again, adding an attack back to its owner's hand is a very strong effect. There was a card that recently came out in AOT 3. Find it. It's military tactics. Outwit means it has to be face down, and then when you fulfill the responsibility, you flip it face up and commit it. So after your rival plays their third attack or greater this turn, add it to their hand. This is a strong card, limited by the fact that you have to get it face down somehow. So, not now in gaming, being on board and being playable without that restriction means it needed an extra restriction in the Check 7. And it being able to be done on any attack is decent. The main thing is you do want to play this later on in their string, because playing it on an early attack is usually not a big deal. Unless they check, like, really badly. Like, they're running a one control attack in their deck, and they check that, and they all of a sudden have to commit 3 or 4. That could be something, but most people aren't running one control check cards in their deck. So with that in mind, my one worry for this card would be you being committed out when they do their big long string and being unable to pass this check. But the effect is very strong. I would not be surprised if it saw play. Again, just blanket, put that back in your hand. Try and play it again. Is very strong. Flip, after you commit this card to play at drive cost. Ready it. If you're playing a deck that has a lot of drive effects in it, obviously this is very strong. That being said, realistically, the main cards with drive that I see being played are Aerial Kikosho, Pale Rider, and Rising Uppercuts. So I don't see this seeing a ton of play in those decks. Obviously, it will be very good, but I don't think you need the flip, to be honest. Just a once per turn probably would have been fine. But yeah. If you're running a lot of drive attacks or whatever, this will probably be good, but... The Unending Path. Response, once per turn, after attack is blocked, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. That's cheating. Add any number of them to your discard pile. If your opponent has 10 or more foundations, draw 1 card. So this card is actually pretty good. Again, it's just is blocked, not completely blocked, which matters a lot. Looking at the top 2 cards of your deck means you know what your checks are going to be. Or you can... So if they're bad, you can discard them. Or you can look at them, see one of them is an attack. And if your rival has 10 or more foundations, you draw that attack. So... The one thing holding this back is it is a 3-diff, which I think is probably pretty fair. But yeah, the main thing was just it requiring 10 foundations is a little iffy on your opponent's end. Just because we're not, I mean, with Rodan and Ghidorah, that's going to happen. But we're not really in a format where people are going to build out to these massive walls of foundations and all that. That being said, well, again, looking at the top card of your deck is cheating. You get thrown out of the tournament for that. In any other circumstance. Notably, Rodan does that as his character ability, and Rodan is good, albeit not just for that. Yeah, just being able to know your checks is good. Would not be surprised if this card saw play. And finally, Vagrant Truthseeker. Drive 1, after you play this card as a block, change its block zone. This card is quite good because it means that we were talking about cards that function as omni blocks in against throws specifically, but against any card. This being effectively an omni block if you commit a foundation is very strong. It'll be very good in Rodan, who already runs like 50 goddamn omni blocks. And can reduce and can toilet your speed into nothing. Yeah, not really too much to say about this. It's a very strong defensive piece. You have to have it in your hand to play it, which sure. And you but it also still just it functions as your building blocks. Yeah, card's gonna see play. I think it's especially good in Rodan, who is already blocking you everywhere it can. Uh, so this just saying it blocks everything is good. But yeah, that will in fact do it for the Street Fighter 6 Challenger decks. I think overall, I think Jamie is probably the standout in terms of characters. Him being able to ramp up his tokens outside of his ability is quite good. And it means that he's going to be hitting you harder and harder and faster within a few turns at most. Obviously the pseudo reversals the game's getting are gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how the meta develops around them, to see if they're played. I think Rising Uppercut is probably gonna be... People are freaking out over Aerial Kokosho. I think Rising Uppercut is the better one of the two pseudo reversals. Granted, Rodan can just run both of them if they want to, because sure, Rodan needed more stuff. But yeah. I hope y'all enjoyed me rambling about cards for 2 hours. That actually went a lot longer than I thought it would. But yeah, I am going to raid y'all over to Wandering Newbie, who is doing some SNES RPG he found, I think. Called Metal Max Returns.